that's a pretty big beat. And looking within the revenue breakdown here, and it's interesting that Greater China revenue was only down 3% year on year. So given the lockdown in China, and I know we're comparing a lockdown period to a lockdown period, but Taiwan and Hong Kong did open up more than mainland China. To only have a 3% drop was interesting. North America revenue was up 30% versus the same time last year, $5.83 billion for the quarter. And when it comes to Europe, the Middle East and Africa, $3.49 billion, up 11% year on year. So double-digit increases for the U.S., North America, for EMEA, and for Asia Pac and Latin America, but Greater China was down 3%.
And we know that inventory is a big topic in the broader retail space right now. This could be maybe why we're seeing a little bit of pressure. Inventory was $9.3 billion. The estimate was for $8.37 billion. That is an increase of 43% year on year. Whether that has to mean bigger markdowns coming on top of the markdowns and the discounts that were already expected, perhaps that's the story that's going to emerge. But
the bargain shopper in me is very excited about this.
I know, right? Consumers are happy. Maybe the Federal Reserve isn't. That's a still resilient consumer, though.
Yeah. No, the consultants at Nike are probably not too pleased with that, but I'm thinking ahead to, outlets.
It's going to be interesting to hear just what executives have to say on the call later to come. But Nike shares down at the moment. This is Bloomberg.
Don't miss Sound On with Joe Matthew today at 5 p.m. Wall Street time on Bloomberg Radio. Joe and the team will break down the latest news from Washington, D.C. and beyond. That's Sound On today at 5 on Bloomberg Radio. And, of course, coming up, we're not even done yet. Nike results just came out, but we're also going to look at the healthcare outlook for 2023. And Katie has a fragrance. I don't. I'm in search of one. We're going to speak with the president of the Fragrance Foundation on the state of the fragrance industry this holiday season.
Now, your 3-day weather forecast on Bloomberg 1130.
The big storm in the Midwest over the next several days will bring them some heavy snow and some strong gusty winds and bitterly cold air. But for us, though, just the opposite, actually. For tonight, mainly clear skies and chilly, 25 to 30. Mostly sunny, 40 on Wednesday. Rain developing Thursday afternoon in the 40s with rising temperatures. And rain ending later on Friday, windy and mild, 55 to 60. This is Gary Best with your 3-day weather forecast on Bloomberg 1130.
The news you need to start your market day on Bloomberg Daybreak.
This is Karen Moscow.
And I'm Nathan Hager. Join us tomorrow morning on Bloomberg Daybreak.
We have the latest on the markets and the next round of housing data with Jeffrey Yu of BNY Mellon.
And we'll watch for fallout from the Supreme Court's decision at the border with Bloomberg Government's Emily Wilkins.
Bloomberg Daybreak, weekday mornings at 5 on Bloomberg 1130, the Bloomberg Business app, and BloombergRadio.com.
New York City's first and only life plan community, River's Edge, will soon be built on a 32-acre campus along the Hudson River, just minutes away from Grand Central and Riverdale. River's Edge, a community for adults ages 62 and now, combines a cosmopolitan lifestyle with the security of knowing that if your health changes, your needs can be met seamlessly right where you live. You have a life plan with easy access to uninterrupted on-site care at no additional cost, no matter how your needs change. River's Edge, your plan for wonderful. Call 844-55-RIVER. That's 844-55-RIVER, or visit riversedge.org.
Year-end tax season is here, and you've thought about a donor-advised fund to make giving easier. But the process of opening a DAF can be daunting, with many obstacles, account minimums, and hidden fees. Enter the Donors Fund, a modern, innovative donor-advised fund that eliminates the barriers between the giver and giving. With the Donors Fund, you can open your free giving account in minutes and instantly qualify for a tax deduction. You can then distribute the funds to more than 1.4 million charitable organizations at any time. All of your transactions can be completed online with no account minimums, no transaction fees, and no hidden fees. Just simple, free giving. Open your free account today at thedonorsfund.org or collaborate with your financial team. You can also seamlessly transfer over from your existing DAF. The Donors Fund, a modern, innovative donor-advised fund for everyone. Visit thedonorsfund.org today and set your giving free.
Have you ever invested in a CD only to find that soon after rates have gone up? Well, at Columbia Bank, we feel you shouldn't have to miss out. Introducing our Bump Up CD. Now when you open up a CD, you can take advantage of a special one-time opportunity to bump up your rate if rates decrease. And those rates are rising. So open up your Bump Up CD today. It's just another way Columbia Bank helps keep your money growing. Visit a branch or ColumbiaBankOnline.com. Member FDIC, Equal Housing Lender.
Markets, headlines, and breaking news 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, and at Bloomberg Quick Take. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
Lots of news after the bell. FedEx reported quarterly sales and earnings down from last year. The company is also warning of ongoing weak demand. Additionally, FedEx has identified another $1 billion in cost savings. That's beyond what FedEx identified back in September. And we had Nike with revenue in the second quarter that was above the average estimates. Gross margin at 42.9%. That was also above the estimate, but inventories grew by 43% from last year to a total of $9.3 billion. So these shares are being knocked around in the late session, both FedEx and Nike. Generally speaking, during the regular session, markets were somewhat jolted by a surprising move overnight from the Bank of Japan. The BOJ now adjusting its yield curve control program. This is construed to be a pretty hawkish step, with the yield on the 10-year JGB allowed to rise to 50 basis points. Previously, that upper limit was 25 basis points. Markets now debating whether the BOJ could raise interest rates in the year ahead. Quite the rally in the yen today, stronger against the dollar by 4% at 131.65. Now, in the equity market, we have the Dow today rising about 0.3%, the S&P gaining 0.1%. In both of these cases, off the lows and off the highs as well. NASDAQ comp finishing the session virtually flat. 10-year Treasury jumps nearly 11 basis points in yield today as investors sold the long end of the curve. We were last quoted in New York at a yield of 3.69%. I'm Doug Prisner, and that's your Bloomberg Business Flash.
Thank you so much, Doug. Bloomberg Business Week is brought to you by innovation refunds that small businesses impacted by the COVID-19 pandemic may qualify for the employee retention credit. Let innovation refunds do the work to find out how or now if your organization qualifies for ERC assistance. They've already helped businesses claim more than $2 billion in payroll tax refunds. Learn more at getrefunds.com.
All right, let's turn now and continue this conversation with Dr. Amit Cole. He is the Medical Director and Senior Vice President of Strategy at Doximity. He joins us on the phone from Washington, D.C. Dr. Cole, it's great to have you with us. So Doximity, it's a digital platform for medical professionals. And when I read the description, it sounds a little bit to my colleague here, Scarlett Fu, to a LinkedIn for doctors. So before we get into the outlook for 2023, maybe you could just explain to us a little bit more about what Doximity does.
Yeah, absolutely. To begin with, thank you very much for having me today. LinkedIn for Doctors is kind of how we described ourselves years ago. I will say that on that foundation, we've grown quite significantly. It is an analogy, though, that most people can relate to. We do enable healthcare providers to basically take control of their online presence by providing them a profile. And our network is HIPAA compliant, so they can actually securely interact with other professionals on Doximity. We now have more than 80% of physicians in the country on our platform and more than half of the PAs and NPs. So there's a good bit of the care team on Doximity. Building off of that base, more recently, we have enabled folks to actually consume medical content and literature and actually have one of the largest full-stack telemedicine platforms in the country as well.
So it sounds like it's a closed system where not anyone, for instance, Katie or I, would not be able to get logins on this. Is this a subscription model?
So for users, our services are actually free, but it is a closed system, and the reason it's closed is to really maintain that security element to it. We have users that are not only discussing clinical care, but often are actually practicing medicine through our telemedicine offerings on Doximity.
And let's talk about telemedicine, because definitely saw an uptick over the past 2.5 years when you think about the impact of the virus. And let's talk about how sustainable those behaviors are, because at least in the U.S., at least in New York City, where Scarlett and I are sitting, people are out and about. They're going physically to the doctor again. But do you think that that behavior will have a lasting change there when it comes to telemedicine?
Yeah, I actually do, and I can speak from my own kind of clinical experience that really a hybrid, what I've taken to call mobile medicine, I truly do believe is what we will be seeing more of in the future. There's some data out, actually, analysts at Oyster Group predicted that in this coming year, up to a quarter of adults nationwide with chronic conditions will benefit from some form of remote patient monitoring. And we're seeing some significant trends in that direction where the ability to provide more convenient or more easily accessible care utilizing digital technology has proven to be pretty impactful with providers and patients alike. And we're beginning to also see cost savings coming around as well. So the alignment of all those variables, I do think, despite the fact that society more broadly has opened up, we'll continue to leverage this type of technology to provide safer, more accessible, more convenient care well into the future.
What kind of healthcare needs may have, in concept, worked well through telemedicine, through mobile medicine, but in practice does not work as well? Meaning, it's still better to go see the doctor in person for this particular kind of ailment.
You know, so it's a rapidly evolving landscape, and what I will say is that in a very short period of time, the breadth of conditions, if you will, as well as the extent to which we can access real-time data beyond just seeing the video image of a patient on the other side of a telemedicine connection has increased leaps and bounds really in this short window of these past few years. I think places like the emergency department where I work or the ICU, folks who are in need of emergent or critical care will certainly still benefit from that in-person interaction with providers. But there's a whole host of data out there that shows that management of chronic, even complex conditions can substantively be contributed to remotely or virtually. So I think that's going to be the dividing line in the future, where acute and critical care conditions will likely warrant that presentation to a hospital setting or a clinic setting, or God forbid an emergency department setting. Outside of that, we are gaining a good degree of mastery of providing a much broader amount of care to a variety of conditions remotely.
And so let's talk about beyond the patient experience for healthcare providers, what remote care means in terms of cost savings, for example, in terms of the labor shortage, for example, when we think about how that's affected the healthcare industry at large.
Yeah, it has significantly impacted the healthcare industry. Healthcare workers continue to be in very high demand for several years now, and it continues today. We're kind of on this trajectory towards a growing physician shortage. And we all certainly learned from the pandemic experience, particularly in the peak times, that our hospital capacity is not an infinite resource. So I think the combinations of these trends have provided a good degree of benefit to healthcare providers specifically, in that it allows each one of us to be more scalable, if you will. Hospital systems, as well as, frankly, the government through CMS, have invested a good amount of time and energy into programs like Hospital at Home, where health systems can actually be reimbursed for the care that they provide to patients, where this time 2 to 3 years ago, that care would have been provided in a hospital setting. They now are able to leverage digital technology and remote monitoring to provide that care remotely, often from the comfort of a patient's home, and also get reimbursed for the provision of that care.
What are you most excited about when you look ahead to 2023 in terms of what could really result in some exciting innovation in the healthcare space?
Really, I do think it's this concept of mobile medicine. You know, I often joke with my colleagues, this is more than just getting our hair pills online. We can now do a variety of things utilizing this sort of technology, and we even see it in our data on Doximity that users are actually leveraging our telemedicine functionality in all sorts of practice environments for patients of all sorts of severity of their condition. And I think as we become more expert and experienced with this approach to medicine, that really does excite me in terms of the outcomes potentially being improved. And when I think about my own parents, for example, as they get older and have to begin to interface with the healthcare system more frequently, being able to do so from the convenience and safety and comfort of their own home is something that I certainly find appealing, not just as a provider, but as a prospective patient myself or an advocate for a patient in the system.
And of course, I mean, mobile medicine, it's not going to work for every condition out there, though. You did make the point, doctor, that for some of the more chronic conditions, that's becoming more of a reality. But when you look at the data on Doximity, what are the most frequent ailments, illnesses that you tend to see requesting mobile medicine?
So the way that our system works is that it's actually provider initiated, so we have a pretty strong proxy to the breadth of conditions that might be treated through the system by looking at the specialties of the users that actually leverage our technology. And it's all over the map. We have specialty physicians, we have surgeons, anesthesiologists, primary care providers, etc. So there is an increasing breadth of conditions that can actually be significantly contributed to, at least through this kind of remote or virtual management. We also believe that technology will be quite critical to expanding patient access to important care, whether it be remote clinical trial enrollment or real-time access to specialist consultation. Really, digital has a lot of paths forward, and healthcare providers and patients alike have already begun to reap the benefits of the technology.
Dr. Amit Paul, thank you so much for joining us. Dr. Paul is Medical Director and Senior Vice President of Strategy of Doximity, which in its early days was kind of a LinkedIn for the medical community.
You nailed it. You called it.
I should be someone pitching to VCs.
I know. No,
LinkedIn for Blink.
Now I'm going to remember it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. There are a lot of these kinds of specialty platforms for different professions, whether it's the hospitality industry or whether it's the medical community, and especially for this, because of patient privacy, it's a big deal.
Well, let's get a check on the latest world and national news now with Denise Pellegrini in the Bloomberg 1130 newsroom. Hi, Denise.
Hey there, Katie. Thank you. Yeah, and another big deal is the House committee and what's going on there. It has spent years in court trying to get Donald Trump's tax returns. It's meeting in closed session now to decide whether to release them to the public. And Bloomberg's Irv Chapman is reporting from Washington.
The committee agreed in a brief open meeting to release a transcript of their full session. Then Chairman Richard Neal announced,
as we proceed to executive session, I would ask that the room be cleared.
Before the meeting, Republicans led by Kevin Brady characterized the potential release as
the flimsy and admittedly partisan Democrat efforts to target former President Trump. The political enemies list is back in Washington, D.C.
Brady said a party-line vote to release the returns would open the way to publicizing anybody's returns at the whim of congressional leaders in the future. In Washington, Irv Chapman, Bloomberg Radio.
All right, thank you, Irv. Disgraced co-founder of the bankrupt trading platform FTX now expected back in court tomorrow in the Bahamas. We'll see if he drops plans to fight extradition to the U.S. If he does, he could be shipped back to the U.S. in short order, face criminal charges. At least 2 people dead following a 6.4 earthquake northwest of San Francisco. This person called Monk says the shaking woke him up.
People are driving around looking, checking on their neighbors. People are plugging their hybrids into their houses if they can to power their houses. There's supposed to be no power until 10 p.m. tonight.
We'll see about that. Thousands without power as the damage assessment continues. Authorities are warning it is possible another jolt could be on the way to the San Francisco area. And Walmart says it's closer to finalizing an agreement on opioids that would have it pay $3.1 billion, but not admit any wrongdoing in its handling of years of opioid drug prescriptions. Global News, 24 hours a day. On air and on Bloomberg Quick Take, powered by more than 2,700 journalists. I'm Denise Pellegrini. This is Bloomberg.
Decision to use a weapon.
Ever wish you knew a Washington insider? Details on the president's plan unveiled today.
Well, now you do.
There are critics on both sides of the aisle.
Bloomberg Washington correspondent Joe Matthew.
The big vote set for tonight in the U.S. House.
Along with D.C.'s most respected news team.
Bloomberg Politics contributors Jeannie Shanzano and Rick Davis with us.
Bloomberg Sound On.
With Joe Matthew.
Weekday afternoons at 5 on Bloomberg.